have a look at these 3 player radars from last season's 2023-2024 Premier League data. 2 are Gabriel and Saliba from Arsenal, and 1 is Ben Mee from Brentford. This is FBref data taken directly from Opta, and as you can see, there's 1 player clearly winning by a country mile in all defensive metrics. Ben Mee wins in every defensive statistic. What is it about the defensive stats that makes Ben Mee look better than both of these players? Why are these defensive stats misleading when trying to analyse centre-backs? And what analysis should we use to reveal exactly how good Gabriel and Saliba are? And make sure to stick around for an exclusive look at a data metric that all clubs rely upon to scout centre-backs, but it still has a big question mark on how useful it is to analyse defensive performance and avoid costly signings. So let's break down some examples from Gabriel and Saliba on exactly how to defend as a top centre-back. And it will also show the limitations of the data capture for defensive stats. Now, one of the key traits that all top centre-backs should have is their ability to track runs in behind. And this example from Gabriel shows all the technical details that you should look for from a top centre-back. In this game against Liverpool earlier on in the season, a loose ball drops to McAllister, who pops the ball out wide to Trent Alexander-Arnold. And as you can see, Trent has time on the ball, he has a lack of pressure in and around him, and the ball is fairly set for him to make a pass after his first touch. And this already has triggered Nunes to look ahead of him and see what space he has to make a potential run. But Gabriel is already way ahead of this, and this is what we mean about reading the game. Trent receives the ball and Gabriel has already started to make a movement and create a bit of separation between him and Nunes in case it turns into a bit of a foot race. And as Trent is about to play the pass, Gabriel has already created that separation between the 2 players and is in a better position to intercept the ball if the pass was to occur. And all top centre-backs have to pay attention to passing triggers, as they are key situational characteristics that occur when a run is about to be made. And the passing triggers include the amount of time and space that the player has to play the pass, the amount of pressure that the player may be under, the ball position, and if it's set to make a potential pass, and any sort of runners that may be around the defender at the time the player receives the ball. And Gabriel is in a fantastic position now to intercept the ball and make a clearance. But you can see he's already on the full stretch. And if he hadn't read the game as well as he had done when he saw the passing triggers, it may have been that this pass had evaded him. And this is where the limitations of the data come in. You can see that he's picked up this metric for a clearance completed, but it's all the off ball that's more impressive than the actual clearance itself. And another situation that you want to analyse centre-backs in is transition moments. And these are moments where the player's team has lost the ball, potentially in a dangerous area, and the player has to make quick decisions to nullify the threat. And there's a moment from earlier on this season against PSG where Saliba shows his quality as a centre-back in a transitionary moment, and it's a moment you can glaze over in the course of a whole match. Now, Arsenal had the ball in the opposition half, but PSG are able to win it and play a ball into Kolo Muani, but he spins Gabriel, and it's then 1v1 versus Saliba. And you can see the defence is unorganised, separated, and Kolo Muani can go either side of Saliba at this point. He immediately knows in the situation that his aim is to delay the attack. He has recovering defenders that can make an impact later on in the phase of play, but if he gets beaten here, then Kolo Muani is probably through on goal, one-on-one with the keeper. And this is where Saliba does fantastically. He knows he's exposed and doesn't want to make a tackle or something that takes him out of the game and leaves Kolo Muani one-on-one with the keeper. So instead, he gets side on, runs back towards his own goal and attempts to delay the play until the rest of his defenders get back in line with him. But one of the other things he also does is he tries to cut off Kolo Muani dribbling to the left-hand side of the pitch. And he exposes the right-hand side of the pitch to Kolo Muani. And these are what the brave, athletic centre-backs do. The ones that are comfortable in a 1v1 situation. Because he's basically saying to the attacker, if you're going to beat me, you're going to beat me down this side. And I know that I can outpace you in that situation. In the end, Kolo Muani actually does well to get back on the left-hand side of the pitch where his option is. But Saliba's in a great position. He allows his teammates to get back in line with him. But the ball still gets played in behind the fullback, who's slacking in this situation, and Barcolo's able to create a crossing situation. But Saliba's job isn't done yet. He still has good eyes on Kolo Muani, gets in line with the near post, and cuts out that ball when it's played into the box. Now here's where he probably picks up a tackle data point in the box, or maybe a loose duel data point. But you've missed all that fantastic piece of defending beforehand. And you might think this is easy. All centre-backs do this in the Premier League, but this is not what happens. An example of that is Dan Burn against Chelsea from earlier on this season. Cole Palmer plays a beautiful pass in behind. Dan Burn has a 5-yard head start on Nicholas Jackson. Neto and Fabian Schär are going for a loose ball. And you'd expect all centre-backs, especially when they're exposed 1v1 and the whole team is exposed on the counter-attack, to maintain this distance. But even as this is building up into a loose ball situation, Dan Burn totally switches off and allows Nicholas Jackson to just stroll past him and get into a better position in case the ball is won by Chelsea. As Neto skips past Schär, the ball is played into the box and Nicholas Jackson has a free tap in, which could have been avoided or at least could have made the situation harder if Dan Burn had concentrated in the transition moment. And again, what data point picks up Dan Burn's poor tracking of the run? You're not able to pick up the data around what makes a great centre-back off the ball. Now make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this analysis and hit the notification bell so you're the first person to see new videos when they're released. And stay tuned for an exclusive look at a data metric that clubs are using to analyse centre-backs that still could have a big question mark as to the value of its use. And taking it back to the data radars for Gabriel, Saliba and Ben Mee, you can see that Gabriel is in the 19th percentile for clearances, Saliba's in the 3rd percentile for clearances, and Ben Mee is in the 65th percentile for clearances. And it's just down to how many times have they had the opportunity to clear the ball. You know, it's a count of the actions rather than the quality of the actions. Now that leads me on to the fairly new data metric that teams are using from Opta called defensive action on ball value. Every time a player makes a defensive action, they receive a positive or negative value based on its impact on their team's chances of conceding a goal. And the benefit of this is a successful defensive action will receive far greater credit when it's performed in a more dangerous area of the pitch. And I've taken Ben Mee as an example. There's a situation in a Newcastle game where the ball falls to him in the box from a loose situation and he's fairly set and he's able to clear the ball up the pitch. Compare it to a game against Man City, where I think it's Oscar Bob is about to shape up for a shot, and Ben Mee is able to get himself back on the line and clear a fairly certain goal. So although they're both successful defensive actions, he'll receive far more credit for the goal line clearance than a more simple clearance from inside his box. But again, a slight problem with this defensive action on ball value metric is it's made up of all the other counting metrics that we've seen or analysed previously, such as the tackles, the interceptions, the clearances, the blocks. These all get amalgamated into this new defensive action on ball value, but it's just that these actions now have a value placed against them that shows how important they are. And looking at the player radar from Opta for Chris Smalling, he is in the top percentile for defensive action on ball value. It's still that situation where we're unable to see his main strength, which was the off-ball positioning, his ability to track the runs, his marking ability. It's more the action that happened at the end of those situations, such as the clearance, the block, that had a high value in preventing a goal for his team. And Opta have admitted the limitations of this new metric themselves. And looking at a quote from the website, you can see they say that these new radars are a bit, and we mean only a bit, closer to being a measure of quality over style, due to removal of several counting stats and the addition of more qualitative contextual metrics. That said, the message still remains: use caution when evaluating centre-backs with data. So while Ben Mee might dominate these traditional counting metrics against Saliba and Gabriel, we've seen why it's important not to use data by itself to analyse centre-backs. And that comes from the data company itself, such as Opta. The centre-backs off-ball positioning, their marking ability, the ability to read the game before that traditional counting metric occurs, such as a tackle, a clearance, a block, an interception. They're the sort of characteristics that you should be looking for when analysing centre-backs. So make sure to check out some of my other episodes, especially from the football data versus scouting segment, such as my Kevin De Bruyne analysis, but also some of my other videos on tactical analysis from Premier League teams from this current season. And I'll see you for the next episode of A Game of Two Halves.